Hey, welcome back. Just wanted to say this was a video that I've been wanting to talk about for a while. Just kind of lazy to put the PowerPoint together. I'd like to go ahead and preface the video with that I am not a financial advisor and this is not financial advice. Now, let's go ahead and get into it. Of course, this video is regarding to what's going on currently with AMC, Citadel, Melvin Capital, and GME and the battle against the hedge funds. So, of course, this is something that a lot of people are talking about, or I see some people talk about, and I see it get kind of shot down, and it's regarding dividends in AMC. Now, I would say a lot of people aren't necessarily talking about the dividends with AMC, just get the dividends. There's more to it than that, and I don't think everyone's tracking why. So if you aren't tracking also currently, this is want to be one of the stocks for the mother of all short squeezes. If it's not AMC, it's GME, but it's one of the two, and one of the others will follow the other. So whichever one takes off, the other will follow. Yes, that means that if you aren't tracking, GME has not hit its highest price point, and neither has AMC. So without further ado, let's go ahead and talk about why a dividend would just be absolute cheddar for AMC. So if we move into, for those who don't know, a dividend is return on investment without having to close out the investment and an incentive to buy the investment in the first place. So some stocks will openly admit that they offer a dividend, publicly offer a dividend. This is an investment for people who like those simple return investments, not too much to worry about, especially if it's a company that has a very, continuously running business model to it. So some of the highest paying dividend companies are like AT&T, which usually has a dividend of 7% for the year. AMC a while ago did have a dividend, however, it got taken down due to a bunch of the debt and COVID and issues to deal with that. Now, go ahead and note what's important is that a market cap is the shield to the original stock seller. The original stock seller or issuer being AMC, and the market cap being how many shares. Market cap is current stock value times number of shares that should be available. So right now, AMC publicly, the amount they have issued, AMC the company, is just over 500 million. And currently there's been some glitches in the system too, if you haven't tracked, where the market cap for some of the stock brokerages shows a higher number than possible with the current stock value times the current stocks that are supposed to be out there. Now, this is going to be important. Remember, the market cap is a shield to the original stock seller. So moving on, right now, if you aren't tracking, there's 1 billion plus synthetic shares issued by hedge funds, and there's supposed to be about 500 million, just a little bit over 500 million real shares issued. Now, the reason why this is so important that you need to understand, and to be honest, that 1 billion, in my opinion, and doing the beer math and just watching the volume for those days that led up to that, which was about a couple months ago, and to all the months that are leading to it now, but that 1 billion, I think, is an understatement. And for those who don't know, a synthetic share, which I just now realized looking at my screen I spelt wrong, a synthetic share is simply just that. It is not a real share. It is basically an IOU. It is as if you were to come across fake money in real life. It's basically counterfeit shares. It should be illegal. It technically is illegal. And no one is doing anything about it against the hedge funds currently, although the SEC does seem to be taking action. So we're just going to go ahead and say just over 1 billion synthetic shares issued by the hedge funds. So when a synthetic share is made, it's not made by AMC, the company, or the company issuing out that stock. The synthetic share is made by a market maker, the hedge funds. Now, for those who aren't tracking, so you're not too worried, the market maker is the one responsible. So if you're buying, these synthetic shares are being bought up by retail investors. A retail investor cannot make a synthetic share. So all the shares, all the shares that retail investors have, even though it's the 1 billion plus, they're all real shares. Some retail investors are not to be punished for what market makers have done. There's no way for you to really know, except everyone's been counting. So all the shares retail investors have are real, but they're being sold synthetic shares by the hedge funds. And for those who may be new, because I know my channel is mainly about Pokemon, but I said early, if you see the first episodes of my channel, it was all about talking about what's going on in the markets, physical assets, and even the stock market. We'll get into it. I've been playing the stock market for a year. I feel knowledgeable enough to talk about this, and of course, in the past 6-7 months, because I've been in AMC since January, it has been an eye opener for what's currently going on in the market. Absolutely nuts. But so remember these numbers. Well, they're going to be in the next slide. So next slide, you've got 1 billion plus synthetic shares, which I spelled wrong again, by hedgies. And the 50 cents is what I'm about to talk about. If, let's say there's a dividend, and let's say they did a dividend of, and 50 cents would be high, but let's say, just for the sake of it, let's say the dividend was 50 cents, right? Well, at 50 cents, this would cost the hedge funds $500 million. And then, of course, it would cost AMC $250 million. Now, why is this? What am I talking about? And it also goes back to when I said market cap will be the shield to the original stock seller. So if AMC publicly announces they're issuing a dividend, and then that dividend time comes up and they issue that dividend, it's only going to cost AMC at 50 cents a dividend $250 million. So there's going to be 50 cents for every share that they're going to issue that dividend out to. And we already went over that AMC publicly has only issued out 500 million shares. However, since we know there's all the synthetic shares out there, all the other people who own all those shares, all the other retail investors, they're real shares, but they were issued by the hedge funds. Well, AMC doesn't have to cover that dividend, but the hedge funds have to. If the hedge funds don't cover that dividend, well, then it's going to become a big investigation very quickly as to, hey, I didn't get my dividend, what's going on, blah, 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 and a bunch of people are going to come forward, and so they have to issue that dividend, and it's over 1 billion. It's for sure over 1 billion synthetic shares. So, I mean, but just at 1 billion versus the 500 million, it basically will cost the hedge funds double what it would cost AMC. Now, why hasn't AMC issued a dividend? Well, there's always the talk about AMC has debt they have to cover. You can't issue a dividend while you're in debt. You sort of can, you sort of can't. There are various rules on it. However, we are looking towards AMC eventually getting out of this debt, as a couple months ago, as we were breaking out of COVID, AMC went ahead and renegotiate the movie contract. So if you didn't know, for the longest time, the reason why popcorn costs $10 at the movie theaters is because movie theaters don't get much money off the ticket prices for what they, for the tickets they sell. So they have renegotiated that contract due to the fact that movie makers were also losing a ton of money. Even when they went to stream the services, it just wasn't making the same revenue. So take Wonder Woman 1984, for example. It was supposed to be a massive blockbuster hit. Of course, they delayed it over and over due to COVID. Eventually, they said, screw it, we're going to go ahead and release it on HBO Max. They released it on HBO Max. Sure, you still had to pay a little bit, but it was much, much less than going to the movie theaters. And even WWE 84, Wonder Woman 1984, was like a ton of viewership. It did not do well. They still, I believe, barely made or lost money on that movie, and that was supposed, that was a major hit movie, but the movie theater, the movie makers lost money. AMC doesn't make movies. Well, they technically do, depending on if you're talking about AMC Entertainment, the streaming service, but so AMC, in the mix of all this, has been clearing up some debt. They've been grabbing up movie theaters, movie chains that didn't make it. They've been getting new theaters. They've been building up this revenue. So I think there's one thing that Aaron, the CEO of AMC, which is just a ton of fun to say for everyone, Aaron, Key and Peele jokes, he's been trying to clear up the debt for AMC. Granted, as much as he definitely wants the short squeeze, in my opinion. Aaron, for the longest time, there's an interview back from like early 2019 to where he was being asked, why is AMC stock going down? And he was saying, we're being attacked by hedge funds, we're being shorted like crazy, it's affecting our stock price. Remember, guys, the stock price isn't directly related to how a business is doing, but that's what he was saying. AMC is doing great, at least back 2019, early 2019, before COVID hit. But he's like, we've been constantly hit for a while. And the reason why they were shorted so hard even before COVID is because streaming looks like the future, and I just don't think that's necessarily the case. I really think movie theaters are here to stay for quite a while, for a lot of reasons. watching Endgame in the movie theaters and watching Endgame at home is absolutely not the same, especially if you're there for opening night, and even a couple nights after that, regardless. Uh, so this is how a dividend would affect things, because the hedge funds either have to pay it up, which hurts them more, makes them lose capital much faster, or they decide not to pay it, and then it becomes a huge, investigation and scandal, and everyone starts asking what the heck's going on, and then it becomes definitely 100% confirmed that there are synthetic shares out there, as AMC will immediately show, hey, we paid our 500 million real shares dividend. Of course, it'll be very difficult because some people will get some dividends or whatever, based on when you bought your shares, based on if you bought them before or after the synthetic shares. That's a whole nother issue, but moving on. Now, because we talked about how AMC seems to have this constant battle to where if you mention dividends, I don't know if it's actual people or if it's the hedge bot shills, which I think it is, because they'll constantly say immediately, I mean, almost you'll make the post in these groups on Reddit, stuff like that, and almost within 10 seconds someone immediately will post, you can't issue a dividend while being in debt. And that's not necessarily true. And even then, a new thing came out in the past year, basically, NFTs, non-fungible tokens. Sorry, I should have spelled that out. It's basically very similar to a crypto, which you can also issue cryptos out as a dividend. But an NFT, non-fungible token, has no value to it initially, or really has no value even beyond that. An NFT is basically like a digital piece of art, and it can be created and distributed by the originator, and only issued by the originator. So it's basically like almost like a watermarked token that traces back to the originator, to the issuer. So, and it costs essentially nothing to issue one out, besides AMC maybe hiring someone to do it, which might be, who knows, maybe like you could probably just hire some developer for a matter of like a day or two to make it, maybe a little bit longer, maybe just a month's pay, some like I'm trying to think of what they're called, but people who really work time to time but don't really work part-time or full-time. I can't think of what they're called, but regardless, someone can make an NFT just like that. AMC issues it. Now, why is this a killer to hedge funds? Because again, AMC issues out the NFT, but they only issue it out to 500 million shares. So then it comes down to, okay, well, we can't even issue this. So it's not even like a dividend where they could pay it and pretend as though synthetic shares weren't out there and they just take the hit. They can't even issue out an NFT. And by doing that, it basically makes them have to buy back their shorted shares. And we already know that the short count, the share count, it's all messed up. It's all jacked up. There's way more than there's supposed to be. Now, some people will say, well, GME issued out an NFT. Look how that worked out. Well, I don't think GME did issue their NFT. And if they did, I know one of the mistakes that they would have made, that they were proposing, is that there would be one NFT for every, like, 10 shares. And I don't know why they would do that necessarily. But if they did issue it, that would be the reason why it didn't work out, because there's just not as many shares as GME. And even though, yes, and that's the issue. So they issue out the NFT. Well, the synthetic shares only have to be bought back by tens. And there's a lot of people, especially with GME, because it's so high, there's probably not that many synthetics, but there is a lot of shorts. That's a lot different. AMC has a lot of synthetics, which is a huge play. And so yeah, this is really the art of the dividend, an NFT, and I'd like to cap off with I am not a financial advisor, and this is not financial advice. So peace out, Ape Army.